Alright, legends, welcome along to Here's Rodder's Reviews, and saying as Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is coming in the next few days, let's talk a little bit about all the movies and the franchise up to this point. Starting off, of course, with the original 1984 Ghostbusters. Absolutely fantastic film. I've got so much love for the Ghostbusters and this movie in particular. This is one of these rare examples of a movie that you could literally sit down and watch over and over again and not get fed up with it. You can't say that with many movies these days. This one here, absolutely fantastic. Of course, we have Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, and there as Peter Venkman, Ray Stantz, Egon Spengler, the three original Ghostbusters. And we're joined later on by Ernie Hudson as Winston Zedmore to bring up the fourth member. I was going to say something about the 2016 Ghostbusters because I'll get to that whenever we get to that movie. We'll have to do it. It is there. It exists. We'll have to bounce off it briefly for a video. But yeah, at the beginning of this movie, of course, we've got these three parapsychologists who are intent and find ghosts, and that's what they're into. You get a great moment at the start of the movie where Peter is running this test on a couple of students, where he's holding up the cards and getting them to guess what the cards are, and they're both hooked up to this little thing that shocks them. So of course, Peter being Peter, the guy it is, there's a male student and a female student, and of course he's letting her think she's getting them all right, and then he's letting the other guy thinks he's getting them all wrong, shocks him. But the guy actually does get one pretty close, but he gets shocked anyway. Anyway, Ray turns up. They've got a report of paranormal activity at the New York Public Library, so they head off, meet Egon there, and they go down into the bowels of the library, and they do eventually find this librarian ghost who shows up in Frozen Empire, I believe. I'm trying not to watch too many of the trailers for it, but I do believe I caught a glimpse of the library ghost in there. This is one of these movies where I want to get into if Frozen Empire is one of those movies I want to get into with as little knowledge as possible. Just enjoy it for what it is. Anyway, back to this. They don't know what they're going to do whenever they find this first ghost. So Ray comes up with this idea, and he's like, I know exactly what to do. So they sneak up on it, and at the last second he shouts, get her, and he goes for the ghost. Of course, it explodes into this massive beast, screams at them. They run in terror, leave the library, head back to the university, only to find out that the dean has kicked them out. They're no longer going to finance the research that these three guys are up to. So they're out in their ear, and there's one line in this movie that I absolutely love, because you do tend to, me being interested in a little bit of indie film myself, you always come across these guys that think they know everything. They don't realise that whenever you're in college or university, whatever you want to call it, you do have that safety net of finance around you that you don't have in the real world. You get a line in this movie that actually refers to that. So I'm going to grab that soundbite somewhere, just have it on my laptop or my phone next time I get into a conversation with someone that thinks they know everything. I can just bring up Ray Stantz saying, and I quote, personally, I like the university. They gave us money and resources. We didn't have to produce anything. So, yes, they're out in their ear. They decide to start Ghostbusters. Yeah, so Ray ends up with like 2 or 3 mortgages on his house and whatever. Debt to the eyeballs, they get to the firehouse. Bad investment, but they get it anyway because Ray falls in love with it. Along with the Acto 1, whenever he finds that, brings it down, and he gets out of the car in the front of the firehouse and he starts telling Peter, you know, that was a steal, whatever price it was, and all it needs is, and he starts listing off all the stuff that's wrong with it, and it's pretty much everything mechanically can be wrong with an engine that's wrong with the Ecto-1 at the beginning. So they're set up, getting ready to start their business, and we meet Dana Barrett, who turns up and she's having paranormal experiences in her flat or apartment in this high rise in New York. Long story short, Zool is hanging out in her refrigerator. She eventually gets possessed by Zool. We have Rick Moranis in there as Lewis Tully, great little character, who hoping, I was really hoping he would show up for Afterlife, but I'm really, really hoping they can get him talked into coming back as Lewis Tully for Frozen Empire. It would just be nice to see him back. He hasn't acted in a long, long time for his own personal reasons. It's all good, fine and well, but it'll be great to see him back on there again. He eventually gets possessed by the spirit of Vince Clortho, Keymaster of Gozer. So, yeah, they have to get together, Zool and Vince, Dana and Lewis, to interact to bring forth Gozer at the end of the movie. That eventually does happen, of course, but there's some pieces in this movie that I've just jumped over Slimer altogether. Like, we do get to see, the film at one point just skips forward and you're seeing all these different reports of the Ghostbusters getting more success and more success. The business is growing. Winston comes in. But you do have that sequence where they go to bust Slimer. Fantastic. The visual effects in this movie for 1984, absolutely fantastic. The whole Slimer sequence, wonderful. That bit in the ballroom where they're trying to catch him. And so the Slimer, he's like, of course, eats everything. There's one point where he's just hovering there and he's got a bottle of champagne and he's tipping it into his mouth and it's just dripping right through him onto the floor. Great, great little character. Of course, Peter gets slimed by him. And that's something that was a running joke throughout the cartoon as well, was the Peter Slimer. Is he only get slimed? Is he not going to get slimed throughout the series? Fantastic. So they do catch him. Then, of course, we get the sequence where you see the business building up. Eventually, we wind up with Zool and Vince getting to the top of the tower, Dana's apartment building, bringing forth Gozer the Gozerian, and yes, he/she shows up and tells the Ghostbusters to, choose the form of the Destructor. So Ray tries to think of the most harmless thing from his childhood, which was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So he shows up 100 foot tall. Fantastic visuals. So good. Now, if you see the movie now, digitally remastered and brought up to date, you can see the visual effects in parts of the movie. You can kind of see the strings now, but back in the day, whenever you're seeing it in VHS and all that, they're very, very, very well done. I'm not trying to take away from the movie and the visual effects, but the clearer or crisper the picture is now, the easier it is to see where the effects begin and reality ends and the effect begins, that sort of thing. Especially with the explosion at the end of the movie and you see the Marshmallow Man exploding off the side of the building. That's very, very, you can see the the overlay on the film and that sequence alone. One of the best visuals in the entire film is what's his face from the EPA, Walter Peck. Of course, he shows up in the middle of the movie to try and scupper the Ghostbusters. Fails miserably, who again is showing up in Frozen Empire. But there's a bit at the end of the movie where he's on the street. You see him down there watching as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man comes to the vault and starts climbing up the side of it. But at the end, whenever the Ghostbusters cross the streams, beat Gozer back into his own dimension, destroy the portal. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man gets blown to pieces during the explosion. Pack's on the ground, and he looks up, and he just ducks at the last second for this massive. He just gets drowned in like liquid marshmallow. Fantastic visual. Great little movie. Of course, at the end, the good guys won. The ghosts are beaten, driven back to their own dimension, and it's a happy ending at the end of the movie. Good ones, evil is defeated. I absolutely adore this movie. Now, I was just looking at some stuff on it here, so forgive me, I'm just looking at my laptop. I did recall hearing this at one point, but it's Ghostbusters is based on Dan Aykroyd's fascination with the occult and spirituality and all that sort of stuff. And he originally conceived the Ghostbusters as a project that was going to star him and John Belushi, but Belushi died in '82, and the idea for them as the Ghostbusters would be travelling through time and space. So can you imagine the Ghostbusters kind of like mixed with Back to the Future, time travel and busting ghosts and whatnot. But after Belushi died, they brought in Harold Ramis, Egon, to help Dan Aykroyd, rewrite the Ghostbusters so that it'd be set in New York. And according to all reports, the Columbia Pictures had massive concerns about whether this was going to be a viable movie or not. Relatively high $25 to $30 million budget. Doesn't sound much these days, but back in the early 80s, that was a huge budget. So they really didn't have faith in the movie at the beginning, heading forward. But, of course, as we know now, this movie went out and totally destroyed everybody. Well, when I say totally destroyed everybody, there's a heck of a lot of big wins in those couple of years around the beginning of the 80s. A lot of classics come out there. Ghostbusters as one of the biggest. And we're seeing it now in 2024. The Ghostbusters are as big and as popular as ever. Of course, you've got people like me that were small children when the original one come out. We're the first people that's going to be in the cinema to check out Frozen Empire. And I'm not even worried now about Frozen Empire. Like when Ghostbusters 2016 came out, just to kind of lightly bounce off that, I wasn't happy. Let's just be honest here, and a lot of us weren't. Yeah, it's one of these things where if you're going to do something like the Ghostbusters, if you're going to update it, like the last Ghostbusters movie we had before that was Ghostbusters 2 in 1988, I want to say it came out. But if you're going to do something with the Ghostbusters, you would have to do something where it handed itself over to a new generation instead of just trying to wipe out the history of the Ghostbusters the way 2016 did. But Afterlife came along, and that movie, I'm not going to talk too much about them, but that movie did it right. It did it well. It did it fantastically well, to the point where, like, I've seen Afterlife at this point probably 20 plus times since it came out. And that sequence at the end of the movie with Egon still brings a tear to my eye. Awesome movie. So they did that. They did that well. And Afterlife. So whatever happens with Frozen Empire right now, I'm happy and content. I think I can nearly safely speak for any of the OG fans of the Ghostbusters. Yeah, doesn't matter what happens with Afterlife now, or Frozen Empire now. What they did with Afterlife was the handover that we wanted to see. And of course, we're getting the original Ghostbusters back for Frozen Empire as well. So this will be probably the last time we'll see Peter and Ray. I don't want to say it, but I think realistically, you would like to see him come back for another one after this year. But realistically, after what they did with Afterlife, now getting into Frozen Empire, this could be the one where Peter and Ray bow out. But of course, Winston is the guy that's going to be running the Ghostbusters now. He's like the financial guy that's keeping it all going. And like Ernie Hudson, for his age, is lasting really, really well. So, yeah, I think you could see him in there for the next 5 or 6 movies, if they do intend to do any more after Frozen Empire. The fans are going to be there for it, and I don't think anybody's going to complain too much about it. Yeah, I talked a little bit too much about the other movies, but again, Ghostbusters 1984. If you have not seen it, get it watched. It is a phenomenal little movie that, as 80s as it is, has aged incredibly well. Right, that's going to do it for this video. I am going to go to bed now because I am shattered. Yeah, I'll talk to you in the next episode.